Monday Night Football is about to kick off, and I had 18 running backs finish inside of the top 24, with 13 of my guys finishing inside of the top 15. So just two away from a massive week. We had Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane, Jahmyr Gibbs, TreVeyon Henderson, and Kyron Williams all finish inside of the top five. Lots to talk about with TreVeyon Henderson. Some surprise finishes from guys like Tyler Algier, Woody Marks, and Brian Robinson. Tons and tons of fantasy finishes at the running back position that were really high this week. We like to see that, but it's time to look ahead to week 11, where we've got the Colts and the Saints heading on to bye week. Goodbye, Jonathan Taylor. Man had another monster week. It's absolutely insane what he's doing right now. Alvin Kamara, you don't have to worry about whether you're making the right decision to bench him or not, even though he finished inside of the top 24. All we care about now is week 11, so let's get straight to it here on the Face Off Sports Network. And looking ahead to week 11, guys, I mean, we got to continue to talk about these big name running backs that continue to put up monster weeks, and none other than Devon Achane is going to be our RB1. Ordinarily, he would be a guy that would be celebrated as the RB1 on the week, but he's not going to, because Jonathan Taylor exists and has been absolutely insane. But good news, Jonathan Taylor can't do it this week, so maybe Devon Achane can. Gets to take on Washington. That defense has been absolutely decimated by all running backs over the last 3 weeks, even worse over the last 6 weeks. I mean, he's coming off a game where he had 22 carries for 174 yards, averaging 7.9 yards per carry with 2 touchdowns, added 6 targets, 51 receiving yards. Just absolutely great stuff from Devon Achane right now. He's a fantastic player. He's going to put up a ton of points against Washington, so he's my RB1 of the week, followed by Christian McCaffrey, who takes on the Arizona Cardinals. Not the best week for him. Had 12 carries for 30 yards, only 2.5 a clip there, but did have 8 catches on 10 targets for 66 yards. Got into 17.6 points on the week. You can't make this up. I mean, his passing volume is insane. Even with Brian Robinson finishing inside of the top 24, Christian McCaffrey is still just fine. He doesn't need the touchdowns. He's just like Devon Achane. He can get it done through the air. 8 catches on 10 targets is massive for a fantasy finish. If he gets in the end zone, he's going to be better. Taking on the Cardinals, I like this matchup for him. Bijan Robinson, my RB3 on the week. Not the best week for him. It was vultured by Tyler Algier. We have to say that, who did have 2 touchdowns on 11 carries. Bijan still looked just fine. I mean, 17 attempts, 84 yards, average 4.9 per carry. Had 2 catches for just a couple of yards, so not really much there. But the Falcons' offense, although it is inconsistent, we still have to trust Bijan. The look is there. He continues to be a guy that's getting it done. Tyler Algier is just simply the hammer. And, in that game where they were playing on Sunday, they just were trying to finish the game, and they were using Tyler Algier down the stretch. So I think that he'll continue to be involved. We talked about that a little bit in our past running back rankings, but Bijan is going to be the guy. He's going to be just fine, so keep playing him. But Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be my RB4 on the week. And what do you say, man? He played my Washington Commanders. Massive week for him. 15 carries, 142 yards, averaged 9.5 yards per carry. That's insane. Had 2 touchdowns, 3 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown, 38.2 points on the week. Again, just like Achane, ordinarily we'd be talking about, was he the RB1 of the week? And here he's the RB3. So that's kind of crazy, but he does take on the Philadelphia Eagles coming off a bye on Sunday Night Football. I think the Eagles are going to be a little bit tougher. That team's kind of starting to get right. But the Detroit Lions look really dang good right now, and they're going to continue to run the ball very effectively. There were some injuries against Washington on that offensive line, so that's worth monitoring. But you're playing Jahmyr Gibbs no matter what. So he's one of those guys that can just absolutely explode and win you a week like he did this past week. But James Cook is my next running back, and he gets to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers are a better matchup over the last few weeks, giving up some fantasy points to the running back position. The Bills, on the other hand, are kind of struggling and look all out of whack. I think they need to get back to running the ball, and that starts with James Cook. 13 carries for 53 yards this past week, averaged 4.1 yards per carry, out of 5 catches for 24 yards there. Solid week for him, 10.7 points. There were some turnover issues for the Bills, so that certainly is going to come into play. Now, that being said, I think James Cook is going to continue to be one of those guys that he's going to live and die by the big play and live and die by the touchdown. There's better days ahead for him, so continue to play him. I hate he didn't have the best week this past week, but maybe it bounces back this week where Tampa Bay is actually a solid matchup. So he's going to be in my top 5. I get the reservations, but he's still a solid play. Josh Jacobs is playing on Monday Night Football, so I don't have stats for you, but he does play the Giants, who are top 10 in points allowed to the running back position. So they're giving up a pretty good amount of that over the last few weeks. So I'm targeting that matchup, and I'm just fine with starting Josh Jacobs, pending any injury news that happens tonight after I record this video. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen, and I won't put that bad luck on anyone. So we'll continue to roll forward. But let's get to my second tier here, and let's start with some big names again, where we've got Saquon Barkley, Javonte Williams, Ashton Genty, Rico Dowdle, Kyren Williams, and Quinshon Judkins. This tier, I think, is just the best floor tier you could possibly get. These guys are all very involved. They get tons of opportunities, and they're just so good with the ball in their hands. Starting off with the first two, Saquon and Javonte. Saquon gets to take on Detroit, as I just mentioned, with Jahmyr Gibbs. The matchup there is tougher. Detroit is not a good team to run the ball against. They're very stout up front. They're very disciplined on defense. All that to say is Saquon's still going to have to get the ball. This team has kind of gone back to the roots running the ball, so I think they're going to continue to do that. The offensive line is strong. Not the best matchup, but I want to see what Saquon and this offensive line can do coming off the bye week. And let's get to Javonte Williams, who I have as my next running back, RB8 on the week. Dallas does play Las Vegas. I like the matchup there. Javonte's coming off the bye. Opportunity for him to get a little bit healthy, this offensive line to regroup. Dallas made some moves on defense to maybe kind of push the chips in towards competing. We'll see what happens there, but I do think that, the better the defense is, the more opportunities this offense can get. And what we know is the offense is extremely high-powered. If you give them the opportunity to score, they will probably do it. So Javonte Williams, I think, is a great play this week, top 10 for me, 8th overall. Love the matchup against Vegas. Let's see what happens. Carrying on, we stay in that matchup. We go with Ashton Genty. I mentioned that defense. Dallas has been pretty susceptible to giving up points to the running back position. All that to say, though, they did make some key additions on defense. So we'll see what happens there and if that has any effect on them. Genty's coming off a week where he had 19 attempts for 60 yards, averaging 3.2 yards per carry and a touchdown, had 3 catches for just a couple yards. Genty remains involved. The Raiders offense is just frankly not good. So that's going to be the biggest hurdle for him is, can this Raiders offense find some sort of semblance to score some points? There were some injuries to the offensive line position there as well. So that's worth monitoring. I think that Ashton Genty will be a solid play this week, but I just might limit expectations of what he can do. I don't think he's going to provide you a top 6 week. I think he's a fringe RB1, back in RB2, depending on your team. But here I have him at the RB9 spot. So let's carry on to Rico Dowdle, the Cinderella of this year's fantasy season. He's my RB10. I mean, he gets to take on the Falcons, who are giving up a bunch of points to the running back position. So we like to see that. Coming off a week where he had 18 carries, 53 yards, and a touchdown, added 3 catches, 15.3 points on the week. Another solid week for Rico Dowdle. He continues to get it done. I like what this team is doing. They're giving him the opportunity. I hate to say it, but it feels almost like Chuba Hubbard is just an afterthought at this point. He's kind of taken over this role, and frankly, he deserves it too. He looks better with the ball in his hands than Chuba does. This offensive line is working in conjunction with him very, very well. So I like Rico Dowdle continue to go forward. He will go as this Panthers offense goes, but they're pretty good running the ball, so I'm going to start him with confidence. But my next running back is going to be Kyren Williams, who takes on the Seattle Seahawks in a divisional game. Tough matchup there. Seahawks are not a good team you want to run the ball against. All that to say, though, coming off a week where he had 14 carries for 73 yards, averaging over 5 yards a carry, added 2 touchdowns, had a couple targets, a couple catches, not much there, but another solid week for him. I mean, 22.4 points on the week. Great finish. I love Kyren Williams. I think he's a slept-on running back. He's going to continue to do things in this offense. They're humming right now, and they're throwing it all over the place. They're running all over the place. Sean McVay is in his bag. Matthew Stafford is playing like an all-pro quarterback. So I love this Rams offense, and any piece I can get, I absolutely want. And Kyren Williams is probably the one I want the most because I still think that he's not being treated like he should. There's a good argument that Kyren should be much higher on this board. I just personally don't like the matchup this week. So that would be my one limiting factor for him. But let's close out this tier here at tier 2 with Quinshon Judkins. I mean, he's got an opportunity to take on the Baltimore Ravens. Yes, they're playing better football, but that offense still is giving up points to the running back position. Coming off a week where he had 22 carries for 75 yards and 2 catches for 10 yards. Only 10.5 points on the week. He's just not going to score, but he's going to get plenty of volume. So if this team, whether it's in garbage time or not, finds its way towards the end zone, Quinshon Judkins is going to have an opportunity to score a touchdown. And I love that for him. I mean, he's getting a ton of volume, a ton of workload. So as long as that happens, he's going to have the ability to produce for your fantasy team. So I'm going to be comfortable starting him. He's a fringe RB1 for me. I like the matchup. I'm chasing the points, but it's really more about this next tier, tier 3. These are the prove it guys, and it's time for some of these guys to start putting it all together. The prove it guys are going to be Derrick Henry. Welcome back, TreVeyon Henderson, Breece Hall, Chase Brown, Rachaad White, and Jaylen Warren. When we look at this tier, man, there's a lot of question marks, and there's been a lot of inconsistency from all 6 of these guys for different reasons. So let's start with Derrick Henry at running back 13 for me. I wanted to put him in the top 12 just because I think that week is coming. He's getting the volume, getting the opportunity, just not scoring the touchdown. It was another week where he got held up inside of the 5 or at the goal line, and I think that eventually that has got to give. He's had really bad luck. And I get he's underperformed, but so has this Ravens team as a whole. Coming off a week where he had 20 carries for 75 yards, added 3 catches for 9 yards, 11.4 points on the week. The touchdown is coming. I'm telling you, I feel it in my bones. So I like him this week. He does take on Cleveland. That's a tougher matchup, a better defense up front. So he might limit expectations. I don't think he can give you that top 10 week unless he scores the double-digit touchdowns. I think he's more of a fringe guy. That's why I have him here as an RB2 at 13th overall. A top 5 week, I would love to see it. I just don't think it's in the cards. He gets sneak in there, though. So we'll see what happens. TreVeyon Henderson, though, the next running back for me here, RB14, a really, really big week for him. Had his breakout moment. I mean, 14 carries, 147 yards, averaged 10.5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, added a catch for 3 yards. I mean, 28 points on the week. What more do you say than he finally put it together? He finally showed the big playability that this Patriots team needs in their run game. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, he could still be out. If he's out, I'm going to continue to play TreVeyon with confidence. Jennings got hurt. That's worth noting, too. They were still giving him some opportunity. If he's out, that's more reason to play TreVeyon Henderson. So it was nice to finally see him step into the role and perform. Absolutely love it. Great for the young kid to do that. Breece Hall is my RB15. Gets to take on the New England Patriots. So, that Patriots matchup features 2 pretty good running backs I have back-to-back here. I mean, I've got Breece Hall, who had 21 carries this past week, 83 yards, averaged 4 yards a carry. Then we had a catch for 42 yards and a touchdown. So we finally got that big play, 19.5 points. The Jets team is just, frankly, it's tough to decide. I mean, Justin Fields is not the answer at the quarterback position. They cannot throw the ball at all. They're struggling. They're handing it off to Breece Hall a ton, and you love that for the volume, but it's low expectations for him. This is why he's in that prove it tier. I would love to move him ahead because I think he has the skill set to be higher, but you just can't trust this Jets offense to do anything, to be quite honest. So if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's going to struggle. So I have Breece Hall here. I think he's someone that could easily sneak up higher if he gets a big play touchdown like he had this past week with a 42-yard touchdown. But all things considered, he's going to be limited. Moving on to Chase Brown, who's coming off his bye week, gets to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. A tougher matchup on paper there. I'm not sure how much I really want to buy into that, though. I think he can still have some success, especially with this offense, the way they're throwing the ball. I think this team's going to have to commit to, dropping as many as they can to stop T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and, of course, the vaunted Joe Flacco. All that leads to possible success for Chase Brown. So we'll see what happens with this team coming off the bye week. Rachaad White as my RB17. I like White. I mean, again, this is going to depend on whether Bucky Irving plays or not. I don't think he will play. Signs are kind of pointing that way, taking on Buffalo. So the matchup there, not the best, but they did just get destroyed by Devon Achane. So maybe there's some possibility for him to bounce back, although I do think the Bills come back to earth a little bit in that regard. But Rachaad White coming off a week where he had 10 carries for 38 yards, added 5 catches for 16 yards. 10.4 points on the week. He's always been the guy that's going to rely on that volume. He's not an efficient rusher. He's great out of the backfield catching the ball, so he'll continue to have that role. I mean, the injuries for the Bucs are kind of adding up. They're all over the place, so maybe he continues to get some more and more opportunity, but I just think you cannot rely on him to produce the big day on the ground. I mean, 3.8 yards per carry is pretty good for him, all things considered. So I like Rachaad White as a spot flex or an RB2 if you got him here, but I wouldn't necessarily rely on him as an RB1 if I don't have to. And to close out this tier 3 of the prove it guys, I've got Jaylen Warren, who gets to take on the Cincinnati Bengals, who are number 1 in points given up to the running back position. So congratulations, Jaylen Warren. This might be your week to absolutely go off. Coming off a week where he had 11 points, 14 carries for 70 yards, average 5 yards a carry there, and then added a couple catches for 21 yards. So Jaylen Warren is just a nice floor play. He's going to give you the points, give you the opportunity. If he can fall in the end zone, that's going to be great, but he's not going to be someone that I think is going to score you 25, 30 points on a week. Even though this is the week that if he could do it, it could happen if he gets the double touchdown, but, Kenny Gainwell stays involved. Caleb Johnson, we'll see what happens with him. Continues to be a mystery box there as we move forward. Let's get to my tier 4 and my final group here of my top 24. Let's start with Travis Etienne, DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones, Kamani Vidal, Kenneth Walker, and David Montgomery. Starting off with Travis Etienne, another solid week for him, 15 points. Had 16 carries for 58 yards and a touchdown, added 2 catches for 19 yards. This Jags team, while they're inconsistent, the offense continues to score points, and they continue to run the ball effectively. So I like Travis Etienne. I'm going to continue to keep him in this tier 4, tier 3 area, depending on the week, depending on the matchup. Does take on the LA Chargers, not the best matchup there. Pretty stout defense, playing good ball right now. So I would kind of limit my expectations with Travis Etienne, but I do think he's a solid play. DeAndre Swift was my next running back. RB20 on the week. We'll see what happens with Kyle Monangai. Continues to stay involved. Swift had 13 carries for 80 yards, 6.2 a clip. Added 5 catches for 18 yards, 14.8 points on the week. He will continue to be the guy. And I know I said this last week in my video where I said Monangai will be involved and will get plenty of opportunity, but this has been in the works prior to Monangai's real, quote, breakout. I mean, if we go back and we look at the snap share, Monangai has continued to be a guy that is eating into it, getting, around 30% of the snaps, 40% of the snaps. Swift is not someone that can command 80% of the snaps. If he's out there full time, something is wrong. And we've talked about this in the offseason, and here we are talking about it again. So I think Swift having that role where he gets about 60% of the snaps, it's not a bad thing. He can still perform. I mean, we see it right here with 14.8 points on the week. He can absolutely be an effective player for you without having to be out there every single play where he can either, fumble, make a mistake, or, have that wear and tear that just slows him down. It keeps him fresh, keeps him going. And the better this offense looks, the more opportunity he's going to have to be on the field and to score a touchdown because they're scoring a bunch of points right now. So I'm going to keep chasing the points with DeAndre Swift. I think he's a guy that's comfortably inside of my top 24. Monangai, yes, he's lurking in the background, but he's not going to take his job. He is the David Montgomery of this situation, so be sure to remember that. As we move forward, we've got Aaron Jones, who I think is one of the most slept-on players in the entire NFL. Really, really good. He's so efficient with the ball in his hands. Gets to take on, the Chicago Bears. Coming off a week where he had 9 carries for 47 yards, averaged 5.2 yards per carry, got a touchdown, added 3 catches for 22 yards, 15.9 points on the week. I love Aaron Jones. He does not have to get a ton of volume to be successful for your fantasy football team. Yes, the Vikings offense might be inconsistent, and yes, they might have things to work on, but what we know is Jordan Mason is not going to eat into the passing volume out of the backfield in this offense. We know that's going to be Aaron Jones. We know he's going to get 3 to 5 targets every single week. We know the offense also trusts him. So they're going to put him in there in key situations. They're going to give him the opportunity to score at the goal line too. Yes, Jordan Mason might be a little bit of a bigger guy or bigger than Aaron Jones, but that doesn't matter. Aaron Jones is someone who just continues to get it done every single week. So I love Aaron Jones. He's a guy I'm going to play if I can or if I have him on my roster and put him in my lineup pretty comfortably. Kamani Vidal is my RB22 here. Gets to take on the Jaguars. The matchup there, Jags are playing pretty good defense, but Vidal coming off another really good week for him. 17.8 points on the week. Had 25 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown. Added a catch for 13 yards. I mean, the volume for Vidal is kind of what we've been talking about with this Chargers offense. As they continue to score points, as they continue to be pretty effective with the ball in their hands, they've got all sorts of weapons everywhere, but what we know deep down in his bones, Jim Harbaugh wants to run the ball. So 25 to Kamani Vidal speaks volumes to me. I don't think that Amari Hampton will be back. So we don't have to really worry about that this week, but we'll continue to monitor that news. And if he does end up popping up, then we have to be ready to move Vidal back, at least to start with, or even out of our lineups with Amari Hampton going in, depending on what they say. Going to be dependent if they give him a snap restriction or, anything like that, a snap count. I don't think that'll be the case. I think they're going to play him as soon as they get the opportunity. But for now, Kamani Vidal remains a viable option inside of the top 24. Kenneth Walker is my RB23. I get it, man. I do. He is the definition of just giving you 7 points. And I've said this the last couple weeks. There is something to be said for that guaranteed volume. 14 carries for 67 yards, averaging 4.8 yards per carry. He just does not get any goal line opportunity. They get him between the 20s, and then once they hit the red zone, they take him out and they put Sharps in. And, they're winning games, so who am I to say what they're doing? The defense scored a ton of points this week, so it kind of took away from the opportunity for the offense to score. So who knows? Maybe Kenneth Walker would have got an opportunity, but he frankly didn't. So I think Kenneth Walker remains the best running back in this room. I'm going to trust him to eventually hit the big play. I would much rather play him over Charbonnet. So if you're one of those guys that love Sharps, I get it. He's going to get the goal line opportunity. But the problem is he could be right here in the same situation where, he scores as many points as Kenneth Walker. I understand that he was RB17 on the week, but that was frankly hinged on the touchdown. If he doesn't get the touchdown, he finishes behind Kenneth Walker. So it's worth noting for me. I don't trust it. I'm going to continue to play Walker over him. And to close out my tier 4, we've got David Montgomery. Again, taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Another solid week for him, but he took on my Washington Commanders. 15 carries for 71 yards, added a catch, so 10 points on the week. I think that David Montgomery is another one of those guys. You're going to live and die by the touchdown. If he gets it, you're going to be just fine. But as it stands right now, I don't think that Montgomery is someone that you want to play, but you could certainly do worse. So I'd rather have him than, a lot of the names after him or even some of these streaming options. But at the same time, you could absolutely do better. He's just going to be capped on if he gets in the end zone or not. But let's look into some streaming options this week. We've already hinted at it. Tyler Algier had 11 carries for 57 yards and 2 touchdowns on the week, available out there in about 15-20% of leagues. He should be rostered. You just can't expect him to repeat the volume. The 11 carries is something he's done multiple times this year. He's going to get the yards, but if he gets in the end zone, great. If he doesn't, you're going to get hurt pretty bad. So be ready for that, but he's a premium handcuff, so I definitely want him on my roster if I can get him. Ray Davis and Ty Johnson are going to be guys to monitor with the James Cook injury news. Yes, he played this past week, but maybe he needs to take a week off because of the injury he's been nursing. So if he does miss, Ray Davis becomes a premium start. If James Cook plays, I would not start Ray Davis because this team does not use him when Cook plays. If Cook plays, they're going to use him and Ty Johnson. If Ray Davis does end up playing and James Cook does not, Ty Johnson is still a guy that you can use, but he maintains basically the exact same role he already has. So don't expect much from him. I'd go back to the guys in Kansas City. Those would probably be the streamers I would look to. Woody Marks is certainly another game, had another top 24 week. He's probably rostered more likely than not, but he'd be someone I'd look to in a pinch if I needed a starter. Certainly you could use him. If this team is down and out, they're going to use him more out of the backfield. So those would be my streaming options, but let me know your comments, questions, throw them in there. I'll come back and answer those. I appreciate everyone's help we've had throughout this season. We look forward to continue to produce some more fantasy content to help you make the playoffs and get that championship this season, but we'll catch you in the next one.